quirkiness. It helps you to appreciate or look at your country differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I have noticed more and more is when I watch like regular TV shows, like US TV shows, or and I watch commercials, I'm starting to understand why the rest of the world thinks Americans are big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you
I
mean by
mean,
big?
but big, I don't mean like, lengthwise. I mean widthwise. Like we're big. Because like every commercial I watch, or maybe I just, I didn't really pay attention, but it was like like it's just a normal thing for me because I see it every day, so it's not a big deal. But being in China and or being like in Asia in general, and just being all over Asia and seeing people being just like, well, I we would consider it now, or I would consider it now a normal size. Um, every time I watch a US commercial or just like I said, anything on the TV or just commercials or just whatever show, it just makes me understand Americans on average are really wide.
So like it. Yeah, man, absolutely. Like the portions and stuff, like the food that they get. Like you get those ginormous cups. I mean, I've
Yeah,
never been
yeah,
there, but
yeah.
I've heard about the size of like, their large cups are so much larger than the large cups we've got. Like you never really
Yeah.
think about that kind of stuff. Like there's somebody out there thinking, no, 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 we need to sell them the bigger, big cups. Like
I
it
mean,
just seems weird to me.
yeah, when you think about it, it's unnecessary. Um, that size of the cup because I'm sure it's in. I don't know. I don't think I went to a fast food place while I was in Australia, but I mean, you guys get unlimited refills, right? If you eat in the
Uh,
restaurant.
we did, we did do that, and then people started abusing it, so we don't have that as much anymore.
I see.
Yeah.
But even then, I used to work at a juice stop when I was in high school. Soda is really cheap. I mean, no, I'm not talking about um like paying for it. I mean like for the store. Soda is like because it's just all they do is they have a box in the back. It has like the coloring and all that, and it just mixes with water. So it's like it's really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy cheap. But people love it, so they can sell for a pretty decent amount.
A decent amount. Yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean though. Like in the US, you have unlimited refills, so I don't know why the cup size should matter. And then people are gonna refill it before they leave.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, we have the big gulp. I think it's 32 ounces.
Whew, man,
Yeah,
that'll do it.
that'll do it. People because the way they do it is they'll drink, while they're in the store because you're gonna buy it, right? So it's all right. So they'll refill it, they'll drink it, and then before they leave, they'll refill it again.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
that's how they get you. That's why there's so many health issues going around.
yeah.
Crazy.
Anyway, so we'll go over some arm. We're going to be going over arms today. The homework is looking better, um, but still, we really need to nail down getting the head and the neck into the shoulders and then going into the body because, like I said, it solves so many issues. Like it'll help you to resolve so many other issues, and then especially like next week we'll be going over torsos. This week we're going over arms. It makes it really hard. If we get this part going, it makes it very easy to add on the back muscles, the chest muscles, everything else just starts to fit in together. And all the drawing issues that you will ever face, like all of you, they're simple. It's never like this really difficult issue, or it's very hard to understand. It's always something really simple. Like if we don't get a center line right, then we start building on that center line. Now the next thing is off, and then we start building forms on top of it. The forms don't really start to make sense, and then our forms are a little bit wonky, and then we start lighting it, and we try to put lighting on it. Now the lighting doesn't make sense. And all the way goes back to just if we just got the center line correct. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's right. It's the foundational keys, the most important bits.
Yeah. There's a reason why if you guys ever you start doing, there's two types of, or two ways of drawing or creating, especially like when you're doing concept art or if you're just painting. Some people like to go straight with shape. So usually they're more tonal. They they'll work, like if you're working with paint, and even them, when they do stuff, they try to make sure the base stuff is correct before they start rendering, because they don't want, like, first of all, in traditional media, you don't want to be rendering for 5 hours and realize, you messed up on something really simple, because paint is expensive and it's a waste of paint. So they really spend their time, on thumbnails, making sure like the base stuff is correct. Then they can start adding on. The painting just progressively gets better and better. And it's the same thing when we draw. We want to make sure all the simple stuff is answered. Like with this, a lot of the information here is saying the center line is in the center, but that's not the case when we look at the reference. We're looking at a 3/4 view. So we need to make sure the center line is communicating the appropriate information. And then when we look at the head it looks like the center line is over here. And now what we're looking at is a form. Like if we're looking at a box, we're looking at a box that has a center line over on the left side like this. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like when you guys draw, like when you look at your drawings, I mean, it's a good way to keep this honest. And I think it's just a good habit to have. Because after a while, you won't be thinking about it anymore. You'll be drawing very clearly, or you'll be drawing in a way that is very easy to understand. But think about if I pass this drawing on to another artist and they have to finish it. So let's say we're strapped for time, or even like in a comic book industry, some people ink and they do the pencils and they ink and they color, they do all of it. Some people do the pencils and they pass it on and then they ink it. Some people pencil and ink. I mean, whatever combination it is, but I always think to myself, if I pass this drawing off that I'm doing right now to another artist, and they're going to ink it, they're going to finalize the line work, is there enough information, or is everything clear? If the answer comes back no, or the things don't read, or they have to redesign an area, then it means I need to go back and redesign it and make it clear. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so make sure we spend a little bit more time. I know you're spending a lot of time, but all your time making sure if part one doesn't look good, like, or it doesn't read very clearly, just after you finish your drawing, remember that little trick, just lean back and look at it. If it doesn't look good there, go back and fix it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Especially like Duncan asked a good question yesterday, about, how do you study muscles? How do you study all of that? The reason why I like Eric is because if we design a solid Eric, we can turn Eric into whatever we need him to be. We need it to be an anatomy study, we can turn it into an anatomy study. We need it to be a character, we can turn it into a character. But for studying something like muscles, especially like one of the two really good ways to study muscles is, one is if you have the time, make it. Like you'll never forget it if you actually make it. Meaning make a skeleton, put the muscles on one at a time, the écorché thing. That way you can remember it. The other way is that's not enough, because if you're trying to create images, we can't just draw construction lines on and say, hey, this is the muscle. We have to learn how to render it. We have to learn how to make it believable. So you do longer studies. And it's in those longer studies that you've really learned that wherever you screw up in the beginning, or whatever steps we don't take in the beginning, like we don't resolve in the beginning, it comes back and bites you in the ass. And depending on how much you skipped, like you could have been rendering for 5 hours, you might just have to start over just because like a very simple thing in the beginning was not working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So really spend time on this part, because if this part reads already really well, your drawing already is off to a good start, or your work is off to a good start. It should already be looking pretty good at this early stage. So here it's good, you're just spending time on the heads. I think if it helps, draw a box on the side, so you know exactly what it is you're trying to communicate. So when we look at this head here, this one, what would you say the view is? Is it a front, 3/4?
It'd be 3/4 facing the right, yeah, and looking slightly upwards.
Yeah, 3/4 to the right and looking slightly up. Right. So we just make a little, rather than start the drawing right away. I used to do this all the time when I don't have enough time to really draw the image, like draw the person. Before I forget, I'll just write a few notes. I'll say, oh yeah, well the head was just like how we did the first weeks. The head was like this. And looks like the body is 3/4. So I'll just draw center line like this. And if there's a tilt, I'll just do that. That's enough for me to figure out, okay, cool. Those are my notes. So just draw this on the side, just make little notes. Because if you look at the head that you drew, it's like a 3/4 view, kind of facing just to the right. There's no perspective. Those tilts are really important. Does that make sense?
Yep.
There's another reason why I think it's good to memorize Eric is because if you guys go out and sketch at a cafe and people are someone does something really cool, or you like someone's movement, or you're like, oh, that was really cool. We don't have time to draw all that. And rather than sit there and do this, do something like this. What I'll do is I usually just take little notes. The head was facing down. Because easier, I can figure this out. The body was leaning like this. And looks like in the, what's it called? The legs, they were very, there was like an S curve. It was very smooth. So that was balanced. I don't remember what the arms were doing. Maybe the arms were just out to the side and on his waist like this. That's it. I'll just make a note like that. And then I'll just draw Eric. Or if I see that person around, I'll just look at that person and say, what was his head shape? Oh, his head shape was, I don't know. Say it's like a moon shape for the face. His face was kind of concave. The head was looking down. Center line, his ears. Neck was leaning back. Shoulders were up. He's leaning forward and a nice S curve. There's the fish shape. Here's his crotch. Just remembering the gesture of the legs.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah,
is there a specific way that you ensure that you're getting the shape of the rib cage right when doing the fish shape on it, like from different angles?
yeah. One thing I know is that the rib cage is rounder in the back and more angular in the front, but that's too hard to draw, like just right off the bat. So what I do is I just draw kind of this oval. Well, basically it's an oval or an egg shape. I just start off like this till I find my 10th rib, and I just blend it into the hip shape, which is basically the fish. And the thing I always want to make sure is I want to make sure my neck flows. Like any shape I draw, I just want to make sure that they're all fitting together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
And then I can just quickly do this, sit at my table, draw this. So I drew on the bottom layer. So it's worth your time to get all of this down. So I found out it doesn't matter what body type the person is, all that stuff. If I can just get all the connections working, properly, I can just modify it. If this silhouette's not correct, it's communicating. All right, I just adjust the silhouette a little bit. Like all the facial expressions, all that, I do that second at the secondary for me, especially when I'm just drawing out in the field. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So going back to this, I just want to make sure that whatever I draw, it communicates this. So, all right, let's start with our circle. And I'll do the same drawing I did yesterday, or similar drawing as I did yesterday. So I can show you, if I draw an Eric, how I can adjust it. Not just, because the Eric is blank. So I'll draw a skull. There's our center. Even studying anatomy is not as difficult as you think. There's actually not that much in the torso. There's not that much in the arms. We're usually very intimidated by like tendons and stuff like that. It just makes it look more and more complex, but it's actually pretty simple. And you don't need to know all the anatomy. There's lots of artists who know more anatomy than me, like in terms of like they build the like what's that book called? The Super Nanny book. It's actually really good. The anatomy book. It's really good, very informative. But when he draws like a lot of the final drawings, they look a little bit wonky. Like the anatomy is correct, but they look wonky because, at least for me, it comes down to we didn't design a good shape or a very elegant shape. And plus, when we draw or when we paint, we're creating the illusion of 3D on a 2D surface. Remember I talked about that? It's like a magic trick. So sometimes we're going to have to make decisions that it may not be anatomically correct or the best choice for anatomy, but it helps us more with 3D or helps the image read better because of it gives it more depth, or I don't know, it gives it a better shape. So you change stuff around. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I forget which instructor said this, but I always, kind of really stuck out was when he said that, like, one really quick way to prove that knowing all the anatomy doesn't make you a better artist is look at doctors. They know way more anatomy than, well, anyone, I think, most of them, right? Yet none of them can draw. Or they're not like the perfect artist or anything. Or, by that logic, what's it called? Personal trainers should be amazing at art. Right? So now my Eric head is facing or is communicating the appropriate view. 3/4 looking up to the right and it's tilted. Does that make sense?
Yep. Looks good.
So now that I have an Eric head, if I want, let's just put a tone underneath. It'll make it easier to read. I can easily turn this into a skull. Everything I drew or all the information I put in, it makes it very easy to start building a skull on top. So I have the center line. So lets me know how to start building out my eye socket. Makes it very easy for me to start extruding my forehead. The shape of my eye socket. I can start building out the muzzle. There's our teeth. I can start building out the nasal cavity. Somewhere here. Build my eye socket. Nasal cavity comes down, rolls out, comes down again. Start building our brow bone. There's my temporal ridge. Start building our cheekbone. What's on this side? It's on this side. Building out my teeth. Got this little angle change here for the side of the zygomatic arch. We have our jaw. And I'm going to make the jaw smaller because when we draw Eric, we're drawing there's a muscle there called the masseter muscle. And when we draw Eric, we're drawing the jaw with the masseter muscle already included. So let's have the jaw be a little bit shorter or smaller. Blend into my skull. Bottom of the skull lines up with the bottom of the nasal. There's a brow bone on the other side. We have this little triangle shape here called the glabella. And we have the frontal lobe. This is the hardest part of our head. And here's the Dorito chip bone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. That's good.
I'm just saying it's very easy to build. And then let's say we can do this. Now we can even take it a step further. Let's, if we're studying. All right, let's say we want to start drawing some anatomy or study a little bit of anatomy. So here's our eyeball. Let's add a highlight to make the eyeball wet. We have our temporalis muscle. If you guys put your finger on the side of your head and you bite down, you can get your temporalis muscle and your masseter muscle to flex. So basically, you just put your finger on the side of your head and you bite down, and you'll feel this muscle flex, the temporalis muscle. They're connected.
And so does that muscle tuck underneath that part of the skull and then go to the jaw? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it tucks like this. This one tucks underneath.
Yep, cool.
So usually, if you're drawing a character who's a little bit more for muscular, it's good to know because a lot of people who exercise, they have that square jaw. Because when they lift heavy, what do? They clench their teeth. And because they clench their teeth, this muscle here, it gets worked out quite a bit. So it usually gives us the square jaw look.
There you go. Huh. The more you know.
Yep. And then we have the muscles here. They're gonna be pulling on your lips, so you can smile. There's a muscle here called the node. When you smile and you get that little shape like that, that's a node. You have it on a side, and then you have your lips going over your teeth. Node on the other side, wrapping over. This muscle here is called the orbicularis oris. Wraps around your mouth. Color.
So did you take the head structure from Riley, or did you still tweak it and adjust it from there?
I took from Riley, but then I also did the Ecorche stuff.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So it's like a combination of a lot of different things. But yeah, that's why I'm glad I had Mark to explain all the Riley rhythms to me, because I was like, some of the lines don't make any sense. Like some of them, you can, if you just study a little bit of anatomy and the structure of the head, you'll understand what those lines represent. But some of them, you're just like, what the hell is this? And then you have this one muscle here. It's called the levator labii, something, whatever. Basically, it's there for lifting your upper lip. Then we have the temporalis muscle, which is the frontalis muscle. This is the one that helps you, when you're surprised. It's a giant sheet here. I know it looks like a lot, but when the more you draw the skull and the more you get accustomed to, just seeing the stuff all the time, it's pretty easy. And when we start understanding what muscles do, it's very easy as well. Or it starts to make more sense. Everything just starts to come together. It's like, oh, well, if we have a muscle that pulls, we need one that pushes because they work in pairs. So I'm going to show you a simplified version of the arm today. Well, it's not really the simplified version. It's like pretty much everything there, but how to simplify it. Does that make sense?
Yep, very cool.
Yeah. So focus on making sure that whatever view you're trying to communicate, draw it on the side. So like here, 3/4 looking up could be clearer. So a little slight tilt. Just draw it on the side. So even this, it's a side view, but it's not a perfect side view because I can see a little bit of underneath the neck. So what it's telling me is that the head is tilting away from us. So just make the little notes on the side. That makes sense?
You.
Cool. Pink area. Which one? The one here? It's called the frontalis. It's on the front. It's pretty easy. The front, front, like the front of your skull, frontalis. The temporal ridge, the side, your temples, temporalis. I think there's something on the back. There's a few medical like anatomy terms that you'll just kind of like. I learned some of them just from reading the literature. Like parietal means anything usually means anything in the back. When they talk about the head, they'll say, "Oh, parietal lobe." The parietal lobe is the back of your head. Let me see here. So here, don't worry too much about the lighting right now. Make sure that everything is flowing together because if I look at the drawing itself and I analyze just the laying underneath, here's your neck,
I'm just gonna jump up. We'll be back in a sec, Brian.
right? And if I draw the rib cage, they're not connected. And the rib cage shape is very skinny. Do you see that?
Yeah. Joe's just
So
got
one of the
out
things
to
you want to
yeah,
do,
he says
make sure the brush size is correct. So if it helps, if you're drawing the back view of the head, normally when we draw the front of the face, we draw the front of the face and we draw to the back of the head. When we draw the back of the head, we just do the opposite. We draw the back of the head and extrude the face, extrude towards the face. So here's our circle. Face is leaning away from us. Just treat it like a front view. So if this was a front view, this is a 3/4 looking up, right? So I'm going to treat it the same way. So the chin is somewhere here. Put my center line on the other side. So there's my face on the other side. Helps me to draw the avocado shape. Does that make sense? So here's my, if you're really having trouble figuring out how the neck fits into the skull, if you guys can, I would just recommend buying or looking at, maybe you know someone has it, like a cheap Batman or Spider-Man figure. That's how I learned it, because Spider-Man and Batman, they don't have hair, and they, usually it's just a skull shape. And the neck area is connected by a ball joint that looks like this. This ball joint goes inside the head. This one will be the neck. And this portion will go inside the body. So I highly recommend, if you're really having problems, look at a Batman figure or a Spider-Man figure, because they usually sculpt the ears as a flat plane as well. So it makes it even easier. So here's the hole. Just draw it like a Batman head or Spider-Man head, like a toy. I'm just treating the, I think if I'm understanding correctly, I just draw the center line in the back of, I'm just treating it like a front view, and I just round out the center line to get to the back of the head. And then so I'll have my egg shape. Here's the back of my my jaw. If I find the back of my jaw here, since I know the perspective, I'll just find it on the other side. Follow through. There's my jaw on the other side. And I can draw that down plane. So you can just think of this as this is all hollow. And now the neck is just going to stick in there. So it looks like we have a twist. I usually just use the circle I draw to pull the neck. There's a different color. See the seventh vertebrae. If I look closely here at the hints, the chin is longer, or it's up inside our chin. So I know maybe it's like somewhere here. So I'm just kind of eyeballing. There's a twist. So here's our seventh vertebrae. I can draw the shoulders to help me with, just look at the negative space. Once I draw the shoulders, it makes it easier to draw the bow tie shape. Wrap this over. Nice little S shape here. Does that make sense?
Yep, looking good.
Cool. And then now I can draw the arc of the back. So I'm going to measure 2 circles down. Somewhere here. 1, 2, 3. It's a little bit long, probably like somewhere here. I'll shorten it up just a little bit because he's bending forward. Even then, I think it's kind of long. Let me measure again. 1, 2, yeah. Really, if you guys can, just buy a small Batman figure or a cheap one that you can just rip the head off of if you need to. So you can see the ball joint and just study that head. It's really good for visual or seeing a back view. I had a Batman figure just kind of sitting around and then just ripped the head off and then start looking at it. So because it's connected by a simple ball joint.
It's kind of dark, man.
Yeah. Like if this is the age we live in, I don't know why we buy the. Oh, on this one, because the head's not straight up and down. The head's leaning forward. What I usually do to kind of locate the seventh vertebrae, because normally the seventh vertebrae is if we find the head. From the chin to the pit of the neck, we cut that in half. That gives us the seventh vertebrae. But since the head is leaning forward, the chin's going to be lower. The higher the seventh vertebrae goes, the more the head's going to be tilting forward until we get to a point where we don't even see the head anymore. That's probably like a view where you're underneath. So we can get the bow tie shape.
Yeah, so Brian, for this one, for the seventh vertebrae, you're just eyeballing it, aren't you?
Yeah, and the way I'm eyeballing it is I know since I marked off the bottom of the chin here, I'm just looking over here. It's like, oh, the chin is like way down there. The chin's probably like here somewhere. So I know the seventh vertebrae is up here. If I had drawn ears, that's another way for me to judge.
Okay, cool.
So this helps me to get the full shape of my my bow tie shape. And now I can start drawing the what's it called? The fish shape. Before I do that, I want to make sure I figure out my rib cage. The angle of my rib cage. It looks like my rib cage angle is somewhere here. And I'm looking, it looks pretty much, it's pretty close to a front view, but slightly to the left, all right? So just adjust my center line.
What are the landmarks you're getting for the bottom part of the rib cage?
I'm looking just down here, just little clues and hints. And I can see this. I know there has to be a pinch here. There's no real dimple. I usually look a little bit at the top and at the bottom And I can usually figure out looking at that. I don't know if that makes, I know it's a little bit more difficult in the back. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not so clear. So I just look at the lower back. Lower back gives me this. And then once I figure out, what the silhouette is doing, it kind of gives me a better idea of what's going on. And plus just kind of observing what's going on up here. So it's like somewhere here. And I'll just start drawing my, since I kind of have a rough estimate of where the seventh vertebrae is. So I'll start drawing I'll start plotting my ribcage shape. So this angle and the bottom angle are going to be the same. They're not going to do this because that means my ribcage is going to bend. Ribcage is not an accordion. And I'll start drawing my fish shape. I think most of the time how I really judge the back, I just look over at the line of like the top portion of that center line. After the seventh vertebrae. I don't really trust it down here, like that center line, because our back, this is the back view. Here's our seventh vertebrae. Here's our neck. So if that's the sternum, this is the 10th rib. Usually the back starts curving. If I find the sternum and I break that into thirds to the 10th rib, is the bottom third where it starts to curve. That's where the 12th rib is. And plus, another reason why I don't really trust it that much is because when, like how Barry's moving his arm back here, the center line can be affected by flesh cutting over. So that's what I look at. There's this, and then there's the pelvis, mark that off. I want to figure out the perspective as well. Somewhere here. I'll go ahead and start drawing the rib cage. Pelvis is leaning back. And when it gets to the pelvis, it looks like it's a front view. So there's a twist. So I just correct the center line. Here's my pelvis shape. I really want to take the time and resolve this area before I start building everything else on top. I might draw an overall shape in the beginning. But I'll take some extra time, make sure I work this out. Because if I don't, it will come back and bite me in the ass later when I start plotting my anatomy. Or even if I'm not plotting anatomy, if I'm just building design form on top, if I don't figure this out. Does that make sense? Just want to make sure my neck flows into the rib cage. So I know this end goes back here, and I can just draw through. So the front should be somewhere here. There's the other side of my neck. and erase lines you don't need anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I know it's tedious, but we have to learn to do this. Like I said, don't want this stuff coming back later.
Tedium's a pretty small price to pay for being a pro, though, so it's okay. I think we're all alright with
Yeah.
it.
Oh, glad you look at it that way. It's like, man, I hated doing this. Like, I hated after, you've been drawing for a long time, hearing I'm messing up on something really simple still. Damn it.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think it's nice for us students. I still consider myself a student. That it all really comes down to fairly simple stuff. There's never anything really all that complex. Like, I think as complex as it gets is probably just understanding perspective. And once you get your head around that, it's not really all that daunting anymore.
Yeah, it's not. Even in perspective, there's all these little tricks. It's because some of the stuff they don't teach anymore. It's like you don't need to do. You don't technically need to know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like building a spiral staircase and stuff like that. Man, because a lot of that you can eyeball. I think maybe for an architect, you need to still know how to do that. Maybe I don't know. Because I found out, when you some of the perspective stuff that we do, like if you design a hill, that's going down, right? Every angle of that hill has a different perspective line.
Disgusting. It's too much work.
Yes, like, screw that. It's like, and I don't know any illustrator that will sit there and measure all of it, who's masochistic enough to. Um, I forget his name. I think it's Bernie Fuchs. He's an American illustrator. He's really good. That dude doesn't know perspective.
I mean, that's fair. We're not mathematicians. We don't need to do that. We're artists. Close
Yeah,
enough is
as
good
long as
enough.
well, it's not close enough. It's what looks. I think it's more what looks right, because perfect perspective sometimes doesn't look right. And if you guys have time, actually just we have phones, so it's pretty easy to do this. Just go outside, take a picture of something in perspective, like uh, go to a restaurant and just look down the street and you'll see a bunch of buildings lined up. Take a picture of it and plot. Just do 1 point perspective and plot your lines. You'll see it's not perfect.
Yeah, because the world's not perfectly flat, so you're not really gonna get that perfect
Yeah,
flatness.
yeah, and then there's human error. That's why a straight road is not straight. If a road was technically completely straight, you should be able to just leave your car, even when you drive on a straight patch, like a straight or relatively straight patch of land. I don't know, like on the way to Las Vegas or something. You still have to pay attention to the road. You can't just leave your car and then just because your car will go straight. Um, you still have to adjust it a little bit because the road is relatively straight. It's not perfectly straight, just like how circles are relatively circles or relatively round or perfect. There's no perfect circles.
Yeah,
So like I said, there's what looks right and what is actually right. Because a lot of even in anatomy, there's things that are anatomically correct, but it doesn't look good. Like visually, it doesn't read well, or visually it doesn't look good. So that's where we use our design skills. Yeah. Well, if you're studying it, just plot some of the perspective lines, just for fun. Like when a picture is too perfect, it looks weird. Anyway, So make sure you plot your rib cage and everything. Right. Okay, cool. Let's get to the lesson. It's been about an hour. I'm trying to do at 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. You guys need a 5-minute break before we get started?
Picking up. We're all good on this end. What about the people on stream? All right, cool. I
Right.
guess we're having a 5-minute break. See you in 5.
All right, see you at 5. Let me get the. Actually, no, should I just do the demo? Yeah, let's do the demo on here. Save it out. I dropped this from yesterday. All right. So I'm gonna do something different. So I can drop both muscles at the same time. Just do that. Way too. Maybe this will save some time. The heck was that noise? Oh, awesome. Thanks, Duggan. Helps a lot. So I could let me just draw this arm. I'm doing a little bit different from yesterday. I thought I'll just draw a torso. So I can draw the front and the back muscles at the same, I mean, front part of the arms and the back of the arms at the same time. That way we don't have to redraw it. Here, there's the wrist, hands. Oh, be in the examples for the book. Yeah, so a lot of the stuff in the book is what I covered in class, but I'll show you, I should give you an example. I'm trying to finish it by November, so I'll, or yeah, like at least December at the latest. So let's see here. So it looks something like this. This is all the text and then.
Oh, damn, is this your book?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it done. I have to change some of this because I added or I've changed some of the stuff. So I have to change some of these pages. Like, yeah,
Can we
I'm
pre-order it?
changing
Can I put a
Um,
down payment on it now?
these. I can probably give you guys PDFs. It's not a big deal because it's I don't know how I'm gonna release it in the US because I think I'll just have to have the PDFs available because yeah, I don't know how the Chinese they want to do it because
Oh, yep.
yeah, I'll have PDFs available.
That would be so cool, man. I'll chuck your money. Like $5 or $20, whatever you want. I'll pay you.
That's cool. That's cool. I'll probably have it available. But yeah, it's just similar stuff. But yeah, thanks everybody if you let because you know I just needed some examples for you know if there's like a common mistake or stuff like that, just makes it easier.
Yeah, cool.
There's a famous book in China um, that I don't like because the drawings in there like they're not very good, and so but it's by the same publisher.
Oh
So,
no, bro. Oh no. You have to
No,
quit the deal, bro. You have to break it off with them.
no, it's not that. It's just because they are the biggest publisher in China. They're government supported.
Well, then I suppose that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. And I was like, okay. But the thing is, they don't, I don't want to blatantly say that you know, because the drawing, it is bad because it's basically, um, you know, when the muscles aren't deforming, but a lot of the construction is done like this and it's not, you know,
So it's still kind of wonky.
it's wonky. But the thing is, this is not a head. So I don't know. There's the chapter in my book because I asked some of my friends to contribute. Like Eddie, if you guys watch Netflix's He-Man, he's like the main designer for that.
Yo, nice.
Shapes and likeness. Yeah, he's let me use his sketches for talking about the you know why shapes work much better than if you draw inside and out. So this is like Eddie's drawings of it, this is not wait no this is Thundercats, but he
Nice and
worked on
shapely.
He-Man. So him and Eddie Nunez and Carlos. Carlos is the designer for Batman, Arkham Knights. He's letting me use some of his artwork. There's what's his name? There's some old Riley guys because I wanted to, because I told my publisher I'm like I said, I'm a bastardized Riley, so I'm not pure Riley, and I do know pure Riley people. So I asked some of them, like Esmeralda, if she could contribute to the book, like her images. So the section on Riley method. Let me show you. I think it's here. Maybe I didn't put it in here yet, in this folder yet. Yeah, but there's a section on Riley. It explains like all the what the what's that damn thing called? Well, you know, all the lines that you see, it explains what they are. And you know, she's like more pure Riley because she studied mostly Riley. Yeah, the rhythms or the Riley abstraction. Like she sticks to it a little bit more than I do. So I thought she's a better example. So I explain it and I show my drawings and I show her drawings and I asked Norm Mason, who's like old school. They all gave me permission, so it's really nice. I wish I can get permission from Fred Fixler and Mark, but no one knows who to ask for Mark because Mark, when he passed away, he didn't have kids. So I can't know, and nobody knows who owns his drawings. So
Oh damn. Does that make them public property? Surely not.
surely not. I don't know. Because I think he had a girlfriend, Datsa, but she's also like really sick, and I don't know how to get a hold of her.
Damn.
I've been trying to ask about Glenn Orbick's drawings because he's like he's like a contemporary of Mark, and he's more pure Riley. He passed away, so I asked a friend of mine who studied with him because his wife is still alive, and you know I don't think his wife is like a social media person, so it's just been really hard.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
But yeah, 'cause, you know, I know Chinese students, they don't know. I mean, they know about when I mention like Leyendecker or Norman Rockwell, because they're kind of more known. I say kind of because they're not as well known either. But like, you know, if you go to the US and you mention Leyendecker or Norman Rockwell, everybody knows who they are. Even, you know, even Norman Rockwell, there's a buffet called the Hometown Buffet, and they usually have his drawings on the wall,
Oh
or you know,
yeah.
prints of his. So even if you don't know anything about art, you've seen a Norman Rockwell, so it's like that. But in China, there's no way for them to learn anything about American illustrators. But there's a lot of students who know about it, or you know, like more like the more popular ones, like Leyendecker, and especially the Riley method. I've seen it on China's thing is Bilibili, and it's like you know TikTok is China's, and they have something called Douyin or something. I've seen people breaking it down or trying to break it down or trying to draw it. So I don't know, I just make a book and I'll explain it and I'll show OG Riley guys doing it. But yeah, it's just a simple thing.
That's so good, man. That's great.
Yeah, it's just been lucky. So let me just draw this arm on the other side. So right off the bat, one of the tricks to drawing the arms or the secrets is you have to draw the full gesture of the arm or get the overall gesture, which is what I'm doing right now. I'll draw a little bit on the side, horizontal. So I'm just drawing a front and the back. We're drawing it in a pronated view. I mean, a supinated view. Supinated view means hand palms facing the sky or the palm is facing us.
Holding the
there's-
soup.
Sorry? Yeah, holding the soup. And then there's pronation. Pronation means your palm is facing the ground, like, you know, pro basketball, like you're dribbling. So that's an easy way to remember it. And did I tell you guys why, as human beings, we have, you know, if you're a predator, why we need pronation? yeah, to grab stuff. So we need to pronate and we need to be able to supinate. Prey items don't need that. They just need to, just run away. But let me just quickly draw the scapula here, and then we can get started. But like I said, the key to to understanding the arms is overall shape. And getting the overall gesture of the arm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because when you guys indicate hands or when you indicate arms, it's a good idea to indicate the hands. The reason is because the hands are like the ending of a sentence. And the muscles the muscles move with the hand. So if the hand starts to rotate, because the muscles generally in your arms, they have a twisting motion. If your hand is facing down, it'll affect your upper arm and your lower arm muscles as well. And if it's facing up, it'll affect the muscles in your upper arm. So it's a good idea to, when you draw the arms, to get the gesture of the hands. And to get the gesture of the hands, all we do is draw the average width of our index finger, our middle finger, and our ring finger, and we just add on the thumb later. But that ends up being about the average width of the wrist. So let's say, the person has got their hand swooping down like this, so we can draw it like that. And it's okay to draw it hooked or draw it a little bit long. You can always cut it. So we get that big overall gesture. And then depending on the view, we just add on the thumb and the pinky. In this case, we'll be adding on the pinky. So in this view, you probably won't see the thumb. It's an old animator trick. Does that make sense?
Muting.
Cool. And the second thing is we need to keep track of our elbow and the shoulders. So we need to pay attention to connecting points, because this will help us figure out the twist, or if there is a twist, or the planes. So here, for example, if we find out the angle of the elbow, it's letting us know that this is a box already. We figure out the angle of the angle of the wrist. In this case, there's not really much of a twist. Or the top plane of the wrist, then we know that this is a box. And depending on what the shoulder is doing here, let's say it's just leaning back, then we know that this is a box. So now that we have a box, it's very easy to then start interlocking on top. I'll explain what muscles, the exact muscles we use for interlocking. You can also think of it as a fish shape. It's just a fish biting in like this. There's our interlocks. Does that make sense? Let me make the deltoid a little bit longer.
Yep, that's cool.
Right, cool. All right, so let's start drawing some muscles. Even if you don't know any of the muscles, as long as we get the interlocks working properly, your arms will read. Even if you don't know all the forearm muscles, as long as you get them going in the right direction, it's all right. It'll read fine. And that's something we'll talk about today. There's my box. All right. So the first muscle we're going to talk about, or that we need to know, and it's good because it's the number one muscle up here. It's the first muscle that starts to bite, is our deltoid. And the deltoid, basically the way it works is it wraps around our shoulder. So, if our shoulder is a box like this, it just wraps around. Give it a little bit of depth. We can think of it like a pauldron, like the shoulder armor. And the deltoid, basically what happens is when you look at the chest or the collarbone, you'll see a little dimple. Roughly the collarbone, if you break it into about thirds, about 2/3 in, you'll see a little dimple right here. Let me show you on Barry. Actually, since the VPN is connected, I can look at other people. Google. Show you on someone who a little more obvious, like Ronnie Coleman. These are bodybuilders. Just because I'm using VPN. This is kind of nice. But do you see this little divot or this little halftone right here? And right here?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You can see it right there. You can see it right there. It's pretty much on everybody. Like here, I'll look up skinny person. You can see it right there. See it right there. Even when their arms are up, it's right there. It's right here. Damn, that dude's skinny. Sorry, I haven't seen that before.
Look at the guy beneath him. He's even skinnier.
Yeah, this guy is, I don't know if that's real, but
Dude's body looks like a zucchini, bro.
yeah, it's crazy. But that dimple right here, here's a good one. This old guy, you see this dimple? It's there because what's doing is it's separating helping us to separate the chest, your pectoralis major, and your deltoid. But we have these little indentations and these little hollows because muscles need a place to collapse. So that's where we'll start getting our first muscle. It's called the deltoid, the front head. And we might see a little bit of a bump. That's the clavicle. And it slightly slopes down because that's the acromion process right here. And then we'll get the anterior part of the deltoid, which is the middle part. Let me make sure I draw the chest big enough. Okay, so this guy has a wide chest, all right. I'll give him a bigger front deltoid. And the front part of the deltoid this section here is for moving our arm forward, straight up. The muscle, the side part of the deltoid is for moving our arms out. And the back of our deltoid is for helping us to kick our arms back. And it roughly connects about halfway down the arm. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And what this is mimicking is this is also mimicking our butt. We have three muscles down at our hips. One's called the tensor fasciae lata muscle, TFL. And that muscle helps us to lift our legs forward. Our gluteus medius helps us to lift our arms sideways. Our legs sideways, sorry. And then our gluteus maximus, our butt muscle, helps us to pull our legs back. So muscles repeat. If something works on the figure, it'll keep repeating. Does that make sense?
Yep. For sure.
Okay, so here's our deltoid. And then here's the separation of our chest. We're going to talk about this next week. So our chest will overlap. Our deltoid will overlap our chest. And our chest muscles will cut in like this. One of the things to be aware of is sometimes you might see this every now and then, especially if somebody's really big, like Ronnie Coleman. This front portion, anterior, this is the anterior, right? Anterior, I forget which one I wrote, sorry. The front part of the deltoid right here, it might look like it's this big, depending on how developed a person's muscle is. The reason is because there's three parts to your pectoralis muscle. And sometimes because the muscle is so big, this looks like it's one. So let's go back to like Ronnie Coleman. Especially when they're in like the Hulk Hogan type pose. Let me find one. Like here. The separation is there, but you see this? It can look like one muscle. There's actually two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. That's crazy. Look at the size of that guy.
Yeah.
Imagine being that buff.
Well, he's been Mr. O, I think, 8 times. Mr. Olympia 8 times. So more than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Snap. That's crazy.
Oh, interesting fact. If you see bodybuilders like this, right there, you see that huge gap. This is happening because they're taking growth hormones. What it's doing is it's causing it happens to pregnant women because your muscles are being stretched. So they start developing this huge gap in between their six packs because the muscle's getting pulled apart.
Oh, wow.
Because when you take growth hormones, like if you look here, see, your organs also start getting bigger as well. Just an interesting thing. If you see like huge gaps in bodybuilders, their stomach, it's because they're taking growth hormones.
There you go.
Yeah, and sometimes they have to get their belly button stitched up because it explodes.
That would be one of the most painful things I can imagine. That's terrible. Poor guys.
Yeah. Well, it's the price you pay for taking, steroids.
Yeah, I suppose they know the risks when they're getting into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he takes insane amount of painkillers right now. And he still exercises even though like everything hurts. He's not gonna stop. But yeah, I think recently he's like more walking. His goal is to walk without the use of a cane. or his crutches because he can't, he was lifting so heavy. I think I think most of his spine has just been fused.
He may have gone too far, I think.
Yeah, but he's considered the greatest bodybuilder of all time. So that's the price you pay.
I guess he got what he wanted then.
Yeah. I still don't understand how they judge bodybuilding. I mean, I can tell who's more developed and not when they're standing next to each other, but when you just see them individually, you can't tell. They all look freaking huge. Yeah. Well, they're called the mass monsters. That's why there's two divisions in bodybuilding now. There's natural bodybuilding, and then there's bodybuilding. And the natural guys get made fun of because I think they pose with shorts, and it's like they don't work out their legs as much. But anyway, whatever. So we have our deltoid. The next muscle that we're going to go over is one that is really important because it's the one that helps us establish our interlock, and that's the bicep. The bicep actually connects underneath our humerus. It's underneath the deltoid as well. It grabs the ball of the humerus like this, and then it splits off into two heads. That's why it's called the bicep, right? Oops, let me get rid of that ball of the humerus. And it's the muscle that helps us to get that wedge, or helps us with the interlock. And it connects right into this is called the radius. I always tell this story about the bicep because it's one of the most messed up stories I've heard.
Yo, Spill, tell us the story.
Well, just because on the figure, we have basically they're like rubber bands, or they're like basically it's like tape. It holds our muscles together. Like we have it in our wrist, we have one in our bicep, we have one around our knees, we have it around our ankles. So it helps kind of group all the muscles together and just kind of hold it in place. And we have this tendon here. I'll just draw it for now. It attaches to the forearm like this. And what happened was, it helps you to realize how strong and weak our body is at the same time. What happened was, this is a story my friend told me. Do you guys know what a preacher curl machine is?
No, I don't think I do.
A preacher curl machine at the gym is a machine that locks you in. So you're like in a sitting position, and it locks your body in. So you can't use your back or anything. So you basically can't use momentum. So it locks you in like this. And he said there was a guy there who was lifting way too much than he could handle. Basically, my friend calls it cock weight. So you shouldn't be doing that. And what happened was, he said he heard like a snap. And what happened to this guy was this ligament here, it snapped, and a piece of his bicep snapped, or that tendon snapped. So just so you understand how tight that connection is when it snapped, his bicep shot up into his deltoid.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That would hurt so much.
Yeah, I mean, they can fix it. What's it called? So basically how it looks is, or how it looked was, you guys know when someone is flexing their bicep, right? How it bulges like that?
Yep.
Yeah, you know what that looks like. So, your arm is like this when you're flexing. What it looked like was, and you guys know you have to be in that position to get your bicep to flex. He said his arm was straight down, but it looked like he was flexing his arm
Oh,
because
dude.
the bicep was just like, shot up in the deltoid. So, of course he has to get operation. They go to the hospital, and what they do is they take your bicep and they pull it down and reattach it down here. more recently, there was a injury by I don't know if you guys know who Eddie Hall is. He tore his bicep.
Yeah, dude, I saw that. That was nuts.
Yeah, and the thing is, what's interesting about that is this is not his first time tearing his bicep. So I think if he tears his bicep, if I remember correctly, what the doctor said was, if he tears it again, um, I don't think they can really reattach it because when they reattach your bicep does get shorter.
Yeah, it wouldn't
So
be the same after getting fixed up, would it? Nah.
yeah, it wouldn't even be the same size. So if he gets it detached again, I think it's very hard for them to reattach it because it's already been detached more than once. I don't know how many times, but it's like a reoccurring injury from his strongman days. So I found that really interesting because I didn't know there was like a limit. I mean, I thought age was the limit, but I guess yeah, I guess just running out of tendons. Like there's nothing for them to really connect his arm back anymore. But yeah, it's fascinating. If you guys just have time, you can go to his YouTube and you can watch him as he gets his operation because he was awake when they're performing the operation. So they basically just slice his bicep open here and they go in and they reattach it.
That's some real good anatomy reference right there, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make you cringe. Well, it's just what happens, right? Underneath your bicep, we have this other muscle. It's a good muscle to know because especially if you're going to go into comic book art, they use it a lot. It just because they like to bulge it out, and it basically curves over like this. It's called your brachialis muscle, and it's underneath. Basically, it's kind of like if you stack a muscle on top, and this muscle helps stabilize your bicep. So this will be your bicep, and your brachialis muscle will be underneath. And nothing on the figure is completely equal like this, so they'll be offset. You'll see a little bump here. And you'll see a little bump down here. A little bulge. And right next to that, you might see another extra little bump, and that's going to be your tricep. So if you have a muscle that helps us bend our arm, what do we need on the other side? And I just kind of mentioned the name already.
You need something to straighten it up.
Yeah, and that's your tricep. This little bulge back here, it's starting in the back. I could probably point it out on Ronnie Coleman. Your tricep. And this muscle is in your back. By the way, we have this muscle in our legs as well. We have a bicep in our leg, and we have a tricep in our leg. Your bicep is basically your hamstrings, the muscles in the back of your leg. It helps you to curl your leg in. And then we have the quads, the muscles in the front to help us straighten it. So the muscles in the legs are pretty similar. Yes, the quads are like your triceps. It's a little bit tricky later on because a trainer friend of mine told me that the Achilles tendon area is also considered the triceps of the leg. Just because of the way it's shaped. Like the shape is almost exactly the same. But yeah, you can think of it that way. But the way the tricep works here is we have our elbow or olecranon. That's the scientific name for it, or the science name. Sounds cool. The way that the tricep connects is we have this muscle back here on our shoulder. It's called the infraspinatus muscle. And it groups with the, you don't have to worry too much about this. We'll talk about it more on torso day with the teres minor. We have a muscle underneath that one called the teres major. When someone pulls their arm back, it pops up and looks like kind of like an egg. In between this, we have a little hollow. And that's where our tricep muscles come out from. Let's pull that tricep muscle out. It's called tricep because, why do you think it's called a tricep? The word tri. Yeah, it's got 3 heads. The main thing to know that it comes out from underneath and then it creates, it gives us this shape here. This is what we're seeing in the front and attaches to the elbow.
So what exercise do you prefer when working your triceps?
Right now I just do weighted dips. Just more like dips. There's a move where you pretend to throw something like a javelin, but you don't throw it. It helps you to straighten out your arm. Just any exercise that helps me to straighten out my arm. But I don't work out my triceps that much because I have retarded arms. My triceps grow really fast.
That sounds like a pretty good problem to have, I think.
It does it. It makes my arm look offset. So plus, I like doing skull crushers, not because I guess they're useful or they help me to develop the tricep as well. But I just like the name. It sounds so manly,
Yeah.
It sounds so cool.
That's the one I go to. And it's fun as well. I like skull crushers.
It's like, what is it called? It's like, what's because the real name for it is lying down tricep extensions, but
That's not the
doesn't
same.
sound, it doesn't sound as impressive as I'm gonna do some skull crushers.
Yeah, it's like you're a Viking at the gym. That's what I always think of.
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it. But yeah, so tricep, and plus, a lot of the characters that you draw, if you want them to look strong, just aesthetically pleasing, one of the parts of the tricep that we need to accentuate is this diamond shape here, this tendon. It usually makes the character look really like more like more impressive, like muscle wise, when they have that diamond shape.
Yeah.
Just a little side note or an extra thing. Right. So the next muscle we're going to talk about we're going to draw is has a very long name. It's called the brachioradialis. It starts about 1/3 of the way of the upper arm. And will overlap our bicep. And it connects at the side of our wrist. We might see a little extra bump here next to it because that's another muscle. It's called the extensor carpi radialis longus muscle. The way you can remember it is what's it called? Oh, that's right. The extensor carpi radialis longus goes to your index finger, and the extensor carpi radialis brevis, which is the smaller version. And I just gave it a different name. I just call it the fuck you muscle because that's the muscle that extends.
Nice.
So if you want to work out that part of your wrist, and we'll be able to see it in the back, more in the back view. But if you want to exercise that muscle, just get a small dumbbell and then just curl your middle finger. Extend and-
Nice.
So I find that interesting. But a simpler way to remember all this is when you start interlocking, this portion right here that I said, we have one muscle, it's called the brachioradialis. It goes to the side of the palm here, side of the hand. And you have might have a little extra bump here. It's called the extensor carpi radialis longus. You can just simplify it into the muscles from that cut point. These muscles just go to your thumb. That's just the easy way to remember it.
And they're on the radialis, which is the rad bone because it's on the thumb side. So you think a thumbs up because it's rad. That's how we
Yeah.
always remembered it.
There you go. That's good. That's better than what I had.
It all flowed in together. It was a little collaboration for us, I think.
Nice. And then the muscles next to that, if you guys make your arms go limp right now and you grab your wrist, what'll happen is your fingers will start to close. So relax your hand and then just grab your wrist or pull down on your wrist, and then you'll feel your fingers start to close up. Because what you're essentially doing is you're pulling on this next group of muscles. Do you guys feel that?
I do.
Cool. Cool. It's because what you're doing is we have these muscles here. And before we get to the next muscles, there's a little point where your arm kind of sticks out. That's your medial epicondyle. That's like a little bone or a little landmark that we'll be able to see. It's nice. This is working. So if you look at a skinny arm, well, you can see it right there. There's a little bump right there. That's your medial epicondyle. It's the inside part of your humerus or your arm bone. Where is it? So even on her, you can see a little bump right there. That's the medial epicondyle. If you look at her, you see this little bump that's sticking out. That's the medial epicondyle. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And at that point, because that attributes to the silhouette, we have this other muscle. So we just learned pronation and supination. We have a muscle called the pronator teres. What do you think that muscle does? Because it grabs from the side here and it wraps around to the other side. What do you think that muscle does? Yeah, it helps pronate your arm. If you guys study Latin, you'll know all the muscles. Like if you know Latin, you'll be able to memorize the muscle names very easily because they just tell you what they do. Like levator labii, something, whatever, whatever. It just means razor of the upper lip. So we have this muscle here with this group. It's our flexors. It helps us close our hand. So basically, when we relaxed our arms, we're just pulling on these cables. So you have, this is the flexor carpi ulnaris on the outside. helps us complete the silhouette of our arm. So we have a little belly here. The palmaris longus, which goes to the palm of our hand. And we have the flexor carpi radialis. So you can just simplify all that by saying, or not by saying, but so we have these muscles here that go to our palm. I mean, our thumb. These muscles go to our palm. So artists like Joe Madureira, let me just find an image of his forms. As long as you separate the muscles correctly, or you separate them into the accordingly, you can add as many what's it called, wires or whatever as you want. Find one where he, let's see, what's it called, Joe Madureira. He's a main concept artist for Darksiders. But if you know him, like in high school, he was working on Battle Chasers. It was just really cool, his style. Trying to find one with, I forgot what his name was. The main character's name. So like here, some of these muscles aren't there, but he has it going the right way. So you can see this one, it's going to the thumb. These ones are going to the thumb. We haven't talked about this yet, but these muscles, they're just going to the back of the hand. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As long as you have the cables going to the appropriate directions, people will buy it. Or it's believable, I should say. And knowing where these cables are going, it's easier once you draw the hand. Like, can you see why it's a lot easier, or why it makes sense to draw the hands or figure out what the hands are doing? So we can direct these, all these muscles in the appropriate direction.
Absolutely.
So let me just quickly, you have muscles underneath, like but we don't really see them that much. You're just seeing it like little textures. Let's add a color to this. Let's use green. So these goes to your palm. Let's go ahead and draw the tape. Just want to make sure I have that tendon there. This is cutting over. Holding all this together. If you really study the arms, one thing you'll learn is that we can really see, there's not a lot of muscles holding our arms together. That's why it's so easy to dislocate them. But it's necessary because we want that range of movement, right? Does that make sense?
Yep, I get it.
If you study, and one of the cool things about studying anatomy is when you start studying like armor and stuff like this, it gives you an insight into how the blacksmith designed. Because you can't protect somebody everywhere. There needs to be a sacrifice for mobility, or like, for example, like a knight, the ones running in the cavalry, they can't see very well. left and right, but the armor protects their eyes. So if they engage somebody on the ground, they actually have to raise the visor, or they have to just take the helmet off. I think that's really cool. Because probably back in the day, we have armorers building weapons, and then you have another armorer who's trying to figure out how to bypass those weapons, or protect the, their soldier or whatever. So here's the brachioradialis muscle, which will give us the silhouette of the arm right here. We have the extensor carpi radialis longus, two muscles here. And this is an important muscle to be aware of, because we get that little dimple shape here. Goes to the thumb. This goes to the middle finger. If you dig your finger next to your elbow, you can probably feel the inside of your medial, the other side of your epicondyle. Epicondyle is your femur, your humerus. So the medial one, the lateral one, lateral epicondyle. So if you stick your finger in there, you can feel it. But this is a good muscle to know with that separation there. The separation being extensor carpi radialis longus and your fuck you muscle. Because no matter how the person is built, we'll always get a little dimple here when they kind of straighten out their arm. Even if you draw like a more heavy set person, because there's a separation in bone there. The fat might hang over, but we'll still get a little dimple here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think when people get to even larger, you get a bit of overhang there, and I guess it's because it's still anchored to that bone, isn't it?
Yeah, if you think, because all muscles muscles basically just reflect your bones. They're just really, really thick bones. You can just think about it that way.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're sitting on top of, so they're gonna mimic the shape of the bone. So these are going to your thumb. Add a little bit of tone, just so it looks nicer. We have a muscle that kind of stabilizes our elbow. It's called the anconeus. Has this kind of triangle shape. It's kind of important to know this muscle just because every now and then we'll see a little bit of the olecranon, which is the elbow. And right next to that, you'll see a little bit of a bulge like this. That's this muscle, the anconeus, just a little side detail, a little subtle detail. to be aware of. It's this triangle shape. Helps stabilizes our elbow. In between, we have these muscles that are called, that are basically just extensors. We have these flexor muscles here that when we grip, it helps us close our hand. Now we need muscles that help us to extend our hand. That's what these muscles do. I'm going to simplify it. There's actually 3 muscles here. We have the extensor carpi ulnaris, the extensor digitorum, extensor digitorum minimi, which goes to your pinky. And the reason why we're starting to see a lot more cables as we get down to the hands is because the movements are getting smaller and more intricate. So the muscles need to become smaller and more intricate. You notice, like, if we look at a bicep or a tricep, they're fairly simple. They're very big. But when it gets down to like the hands, we start getting more cables and the muscles get smaller because we need to do smaller, more intricate things. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then back here, we'll have the extensor carpi, flexor carpi ulnaris, which is completes the shape of our arm. This muscle is going to our palm. So let's color out the sections again. We have these cables going down to the side of the fingers or the thumb. Let's color it. Okay. So I have these ones, which goes to the thumb. We have these muscles with this muscle that goes to your palm. And then you have these muscles, which goes to the top of your hand. So as long as we separate the muscles into these three groups and just have them going in those directions, your arm muscles will be believable. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right, so let's just draw some simplified arms. And we're doing good on time. Yesterday we drew a character randomly, but it was cool.
That sounds very cool. If you want to do that, go ahead. I'll be very down for that.
Oh, we're just talking about the importance of sketching and having variants for so how you can just start sketching characters and stylizing. This week homework is basically the same. Don't worry too much about the arms right now. Start working on the arms if your stage 1 and stage 2 are working. Does that make sense? If it's not working, I want you to continue working on that.
Yep.
It's really crucial because I gave you some arm notes while we draw. I'll just quickly draw a character. I think that'll be fun. So you can see some of the applications for it right away.
Sick.
So I don't have a character in mind right now. Yesterday we started with, let me show you the character we started. We ended up like the shapes that ended up being this. But you can see all the variants or the variations of it. Originally started off as, there you go. That's just to start getting you thinking about body types. So in the beginning, how I usually work is I don't draw very dynamic poses and all that right in the beginning because I don't know what the character looks like yet. So I'll start with a simple front view. Oh, okay. Let's draw a buff character with and I'll just draw some. Oh, I'll draw arms and stuff on it, so you can see how you can easily or very quickly interlock. So, all right, let's we'll just stylize an arm. So here's some arms right here. So one, when we draw an arm, I don't care about all the interlocks right now. Yeah. When you do it with Eric, basically what I do is when I find the shoulder, I draw that ball. Draw a bigger humerus, and then I just draw our noodle. So there's the wrist here and the wrist there. I mean, breaking the arm here, wrist is somewhere here. Fingers are going out this way. So that's my gesture. Does that make sense so far?
Yep, we're with you.
And there's the shoulder. And then I can immediately look at the bicep. The bicep is facing towards us. So it's letting me know this is the front plane. So I can mark that off. If I want, I can just go ahead and indicate an interlock just by using this U shape. Because all I have to do is do that, and it's interlock. I look down at the palm, and I can see, oh, there's a side plane here. So there's a slight, very slight twist. Does that make sense?
Yep, with you so far.
And we know the thumb is over here. So if I decide later on I'm going to draw muscles, I know that this needs to go over in this direction, and these muscles need to go in this direction. Whatever tables I start to draw. So that's already figured out. So part of the work is already done. Draw my deltoid. So if this is the front plane, this must be a side plane. And I can already see a little bit of the tricep right here. The tricep, then it goes into the extensor carpi, the brachialis and the extensor carpi radialis longus. And I can just adjust my gesture line a little bit. Here's my tricep. Here's my extensor carpi brachialis muscle. Give me the forearms. I can see the medial epicondyle right there. Yeah, right now this is my pinch side and this is my stretch side. And then I might just add the overlap for the chest, important landmark. And here's my tricep. Anytime you guys draw limbs, this is a little bit too long. Just fix it right now. Make sure all your bumps are offset. Does that make sense? The reason why that happens is because muscles grab onto the next thing. Like you'll never see a muscle, if you have a bone like this. One, two, three, four. Right? You'll never have a muscle go like this and then grab like that. That just doesn't work. You'll have a muscle grabbing here and then grabbing the next thing. You'll have a muscle here and grabbing the next thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man.
So if you guys design a mech and you know anatomy and you need the mech to do certain kinds of movements, now you know what kinds of pistons or things that you need to put in. I mean, for example, I think the classic RoboCop is a good example, like especially his leg. Oh, it's cool. They just have it. You know what this is?
Your Achilles tendon.
Yeah, it's just an Achilles tendon. You need joints here. Well, this is a shell, but you can see where they add the soft areas where things need to actually move. So this part's protected. Your knees, it needs movement. So that's like there's points of weakness because that's a sacrifice. You can protect your whole leg and have it be stiff, and then you can't move your leg. Or you can add little cut lines or break marks where the legs and everything they can move. So like some of the smaller stuff, seeing like all the mechanical bits and stuff that you can kind of make up, but stuff like this, like when you're designing a mech or something that needs to move, like even if you look at his arm, here's the shoulder piece, here's his bicep, and then they hit it with gloves. But even if you look at the hands, there's hinges for knuckles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think one of the robots from Overwatch is a really good example of the pistons. I can't remember what his name is. It starts with a Z, I think. And he's just got like his neck is just like all these different pistons, and of course that's the one, Zenyatta, I think. Yeah, not the big boy, the other one. Zenyatta. There you go.
Yeah, but even these pistons, this is a trapezius. It looks like, and this looks like this is definitely the sternocleidomastoideus muscle.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's not like random. I mean, if you look at armor itself, just like regular armor, I mean, I really like looking at medieval gauntlets because I think it's just so intricate how they do it. So I was explaining to somebody what great swords were. It's so cool looking at all like where all this stuff is because it's made to move with the bone, and you can see where where there needs to be more flexibility, the plates get smaller. Because you still need range of movement with your wrists. You still want be able to punch somebody, so the knuckles need to be reinforced. So all this stuff to me is like, I don't know, like when I look at it, it's amazing.
Yeah, I feel you. Someone brought one in, I think it was in like a second year, and they let me try them on, and it was amazing. You just keep moving your hands and you see the way it moves and all that kind of stuff. Like they put so much care and thought into it. It's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think we don't really have that many armor left, that was actually used in battle. I think all the armor we have that a lot of people have found have been the ones that are for the wealthy and rich. So it was more like ceremonial armor
Yeah.
because yeah, an armorer is not going to spend like I don't see how, I mean, just resource wise, you would have even like 60 people wearing armor that looks like this coming at you. Like this amount of detail, this amount of like intricate metal work for like the whole army. That's crazy. That's not good.
Yeah, most of those nice ones there probably wouldn't have seen battle at all, would they?
Yeah, you wouldn't have seen a lot of that because I feel like we don't really know like what the well, I guess they have ideas. I should do more research into it. It's just the last time I was doing research. I remember that, so we don't really have that many examples of practical armor. Like that your average foot soldier would wear. Yeah, gold armor is. You would look nice though. You would leave a nice corpse. But this is cool. Like, this took me. I didn't know about this either. Like, do you guys know why it's like a pot belly here a little bit?
It's so they can breathe and flex a little bit, isn't it?
It's because when you're riding a horse, where are people gonna be stabbing from? They're gonna be stabbing up at you, right? Yeah, below. So the armor here is a little like the armor itself, because one thing that's so cool about medieval armor to me is, yeah, it's not the same thickness everywhere. Like even a chest plate is not the same thickness. There's like more, I think it gets like harder or more thickness down here and stuff like this. But yeah, this is to deflect swords and spears coming at you from the bottom. It's just so cool. But no knight would be fighting like this because they can't see. If you guys want to see like how, I think it's, I don't know, for if you guys design a character and you're designing medieval characters, I think it's cool, especially because of YouTube. I think it's even people who practice Hema. Do you guys know what Hema is?
No.
I think it stands for like historic European martial arts. Yeah, so if you watch people actually fight and train with these weapons, it's really interesting. Especially people who get there's like people who get decked out in full armor and then they fight now. That's like a sport, but it's cool seeing that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, studying stuff like this directly applies to understanding armor and stuff like this, engineering, how armor works and why we need certain areas. Like this is a pretty cool way of protecting your elbows, and at the same time allowing you to flex your arm, being able to flex your arm. But yeah, I mean, if you look at this versus, but there's like a common theme, or when you start looking at different countries, different armors, different time periods, and then you look at what materials they had use of, and like if you look at one thing that a lot of armors have that's universal is they have that crotch piece like this. Like in every culture, samurais have this, the knights have this. I think even the Vikings have something like this. It's because if you're riding a horse or if you're trying to deflect, yeah, because you need something to protect your crotch. You also need something to protect the side of your legs. I don't know. It's really cool. So yeah, just if you guys do research and it's just kind of I try to relate everything back to the stuff I already know. Never understood armor like this, and this is not real, but yeah.
Have you seen that video with that woman talking about how impractical breast armor is? She does like a
Yeah.
full 30-minute spiel. It was great.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't know. I don't know what kind of I think regular armor would be good for women as well. I think just make it more form fitting to them. And then yeah, I feel like having an extra, you know, if your armor piece is smooth like this, right? And there's the arm, if your armor is just smooth like that, I feel like it's easy for this sword to deflect. But when you have like an extra shape here, especially like the one we just saw where there's a hollow, I don't think that would be really good because if someone hits you here, it'll stop and then maybe deflect somewhere else. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one big weak point right there.
So any with bigger pecs than women's breasts as well. Yeah, you know what? Big pecs. This whole having the really big pecs. I think it's more of a modern phenomenon. I don't think in history, like during this time, they because aesthetics change over time, right? Like what we think is beautiful. If you look at Renaissance art, there's a reason why women have big foreheads. It's because they thought that was like ideal. And I know one of the fashion things that they did was women would kind of shave the front of the front part of their head so that they would look like they would have larger foreheads. That was because that was like the standard of beauty back then. So even that changes. But I think like having the big pecs is a new phenomenon. Because I think even in Renaissance times, I mean, a lot of Asian cultures. Nice. But a lot of Asian cultures, or just in history, if you look back, they didn't like, even when it comes to like women standards, like what they would consider beautiful. Like I think more portly shaped woman, they used to consider that better because she's healthier. Like someone skinny, like now they would probably look at them like, you're too skinny. It's like you don't look healthy. Back in the day, if you're dark, like peasants, they're darker because they work out in the sun, and it's better for noble people to be more light skinned because, but now it's like the opposite, right? So
Yeah, and you got to
so
think.
stand,
You got to think
go
like
ahead.
back in the day. You got to imagine how much. Well, like if you're gonna have big pecs and big muscles and stuff, you're gonna have to fuel the muscles and all that kind of stuff by eating a lot. They wouldn't have been able to keep all that food. They wouldn't have been able to get that much food.
Yeah, I mean, because I think the average body, like to do a bodybuilding or even a strongman, like strongman now, I'm pretty sure they're stronger than stronger people back then, just because the amount of weight that they have access to lifting, and also the amount of food, because a strongman needs to eat like 1,500, 15,000 calories a day or something like that, some crazy amount. And I don't see like a farmer being able to, or anybody back then being able to eat like that all the time.
I think the only guy that comes close is probably what was he King Henry VIII, and he didn't eat lots to build bulk or anything.
Yeah, yeah, they're just, yeah, but they didn't know that kind of stuff. These are people who thought putting mercury on your face was making you more beautiful. And I think I forget which Elizabeth it was. She went crazy because of it, or that's one of the theories. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't want to get old, and she kept putting mercury on her face, and it's like crazy. I mean, did you guys know that? Like I said, if you guys study concept art, you'll learn tons of random facts, but it's also interesting. They used to think radioactive water was great treatment for cancer. There was like no downside. So it's basically radioactive water. They just have you drink radioactive water. And there was a guy who he was very rich, so he could afford radioactive water, and it made him feel really good. He felt stronger, he felt healthy, so he did it. I forget how much he was drinking. I read, but one day his jaw just fell off.
And there's photos of it. You can find it. There's photos of this guy who literally just lost his jaw.
Yeah, he
And
lost
it
his
didn't
jaw,
stop there. He just fell apart and died. It was crazy.
yeah, and then I think his coffin right now, scientists say that it'll just be radioactive for I don't know how many more hundreds of years. That's crazy. So
I literally stumbled upon a video about that the other day, man. Crazy.
with the radioactive water.
Yeah. And the guy that lost
Yeah.
his jaw. Yeah, I saw a photo of it. It's nasty.
Yeah, it's not good. Um, yeah, so it's just interesting. Like I said,
Absolutely. That's like perfect reference for a zombie. I mean, he's missing body parts.
yeah. So anyway, so if you guys draw arm, just get the big overall gesture, and then focus on just the interlocks. That's basically it, and the shapes. And if muscles are like a secondary thing. So if I take this and I start stylizing it, so let's say I want to draw a more cartoony arm, where it's more like Bruce Timm, like a Bruce Timm style arm. Bruce Timm doesn't have a lot of bumps in the arms. Like this kind of Batman, you can still, these are simple shapes, but you can still interlock them. So we'll still draw the same gesture. This is why I think it's more important that we learn to use the overall idea than it is like, this is this muscle, this is this muscle, this is this muscle. It doesn't matter as long as you know how to you understand the idea, or we understand the idea, and we can control it and learn how to use it. There's the same gesture. We'll still get this to be a stretch side. We'll still get this to be a pinch side. Still mark off the interlock. I'm going to change the proportion of the arm. I'm going to make the lower part a little bit smaller. 2 bumps. This will be the wrist. Bruce Timm doesn't really do that. Just make this a straight shape. I can probably exaggerate this even more, but does that make sense?
Yeah, man.
So it really just depends on how you want to stylize that arm. What style, but I'm still paying attention to the same thing. Up here, A, even though this style doesn't really have a strong, like deltoid, and C. Those are the things I need to pay attention to, just the connecting points. It's the same thing when you draw drapery. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So let's just quickly draw a character, but since we just said Bruce Timm, let's draw like a character like this. Let's draw I'm just quickly looking at the shapes I kind of have to use. All right, cool. Let's draw I guess a samurai or something. Let's draw a Jin, or someone like Jin. First thing I'm gonna do is figure out the overall body type. And then I just play dress up. And that's the easiest way I can put it. Because I want to make sure that if I can get the silhouette looking really interesting, even in a front view, first of all, it lets me know how to rotate the character. Because try drawing something like this in a 3/4 view. You know, like all these little pieces, try drawing that in a 3/4 view when we don't even understand it in a front view. Or in an action pose. It's really difficult. And if you can, awesome, more power to you. But does that make sense? Cool. So something in Bruce Timm style. So let's say we're drawing a character like Jin. So Jin is not that, not that buff. So I usually just start, like I said, I just start with a simple front view. If I like the proportions in the front view, all I do is break that proportion down, and then now I can draw that character from every angle. Just makes it easier. The shoulders. Still want to figure out the bow tie shape. So I'm going to quickly look at a Bruce Timm drawing again. That's how I usually do this. If I had to do something in Bruce Timm style, but add my own flair to it, the first thing I would do is actually copy a few of his drawings. What that does is it helps me to get into his mindset, but kind of learn his combination of lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can't really learn it by just looking at it. Just randomly saw Mark Hamill, so I'm just kind of excited because they're making a new Chucky movie, and then it'll be Mark Hamill again. That dude is just like the best. I don't know. I like he's like my favorite Joker.
Oh yeah, man. He brings something totally different.
Yeah. I think because he cares about the roles he has.
Yeah, he's really got just a ton of passion for every project he works on, I swear.
Yeah, I think I heard that's why he doesn't like Harrison Ford.
Yeah, because he's like the exact opposite.
I think Harrison Ford matches now, like his face and his attitude for everything. It matches now because he's like this grumpy old man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I think it completely matches him. All right, cool. That's how he does his arm shapes. All right. So drawing a samurai. Just want to figure out the body type underneath. So just so you guys know, if you guys ever have to do a job where you need to figure out, you need to adapt someone's style, and then you want to add your own flair to it, the first step is you got to learn that style. You got to figure out like what key elements make that style before you can add your own flair to it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I think a lot of the problems arises when it's like we try to add, our own flair, but we don't even understand how to. Yeah. Um, we like some people, I'm gonna add my own flair to it. Yeah, but you got to first understand what you're trying to add your own flair to. It's like if you're trying to draw an arm and stylize an arm, we need to understand that arm. We can't just draw something like that. I mean, there are people who can. I'm not one of them. And it's nice because if you study that person's style, what ends up happening is you kind of learn you widen your shape vocabulary. Because that style might use shapes or combinations of shapes that you would probably never use on your own. You would never, or you wouldn't even think of using those shapes. So I think it's really cool when you do that. Yeah. So I'm just gonna take these shapes and then just duplicate it. Plus, I think this is a really fast way to work. If I had access to drawing like this back when I was in school, I'd be working so much faster. I don't have to redraw anything. I can just draw it once and then just duplicate it. And then you want 100? Okay, no problem. All right. So one thing I don't like right now is the size of his head. Like that smooth transition. I just don't like the shape of it, or not just the shape. I don't like the size. Purely from an aesthetic view, right now. So I'm going to I think the head can be a little bit smaller. I usually save the original, but whatever. That looks better. But since we don't have a lot of time, I just want to hurry up and I want to get to the point where we start adding stuff on him. An average weekly, I don't know what it is now, but back when I was in school, it was okay. So this is what I remember from first term, because the first term I remember, second and third term I started getting more jaded, or not jaded, but more like I'm used to this, so it's not a big deal. Because I'm like, oh yeah, okay, we just do this. First term I remember because like my first class, it was called analysis of form or something like that. It's basically a figure drawing class. I had to do 50 lay-ins a week for just that class. Every week is 50 lay-ins. For head drawing, we had to do 60 heads a week. Let me see. And then you have perspective homework. And perspective homework, the workload will depend on the homework. Drawing the Japanese garden or the Japanese temple, that was freaking hard because of the all the little roof tiles and stuff that we had to draw. And drawing a 3-point city, that was hard. 6 classes, 5 classes being studio classes, 1 class being academic. The academic class is bullcrap. Like it's easy. You can do that in your sleep. Like there's a class like basically out of those 5 studio classes, 4 of them were figure drawing. They had different names, but they were still figure drawing. And one of them was design theory or design, I forget what it was, like something design. And it's not hard. The work itself is not hard. It just takes a long time. And the way I can explain it is like all of you can do multiplication problems, right? Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like single digit. But if you had to do 300, it's easy. It just takes a long time. It's like that. So for example, like for a class, it would be like you have to do for the design class. We had to take a whiteboard, a white illustration board. And I think that class was to teach us design, but it was also to teach us presentation skills, because that's one of the things I know that clients really liked about Art Center students, because they have a portfolio, everything's very professional. But anyway, so you would get 6x6 illustration board, you would cut it, and then you would take a tape, and then you would tape off 2 inches. So the border can be white, because basically, if your borders are dirty, then you'll get marked down for it. And so now you have 4-inch by 4-inch, so it's 4, 4, right? And you have to take an X-Acto knife and cut it right here, because you're going to be painting inside this 4x4. And when you cut a little groove into the illustration board, it creates a little valley like this, or a little like a cliff edge. And so when you paint, the water will seep in and it'll leave a nice crisp edge. So we had to do that. And then we have to use gouache. We have to put gouache in like a rice bowl and then mix it so that you can get this really nice smooth consistency. And you have to use a nice flat brush. And what we do is we have to learn. The lesson was about golden mean. This thing, I forget, whatever. But so you make all these designs inside like this, right? So you learn the golden mean, and then let's say we study something called simultaneous contrast. Simultaneous contrast is having a color be the same value, but what's it called? Same value, but it looks visually they look different because of what they're sitting next to. But the value is the same. So it's like blue and red, right? And so we take that. So we'll mix simultaneous value contrast. And then what we'll do is, you see this little section here that I created because I created all these design patterns. I have to take some tape and tape it here like this, and then like that. And then I have to take my X-Acto knife and cut. And then I have to take my my gouache paint, mix up a blue, fill this in, and then wait till it dries. You can't blow on it, because if you blow on it, your spit might get on the gouache and make little bubbles. And then when it dries, you pick it up, you rip off the tape, and then you have this really clean shape there. Then you see this little shape here. You have to take tape, tape this, use an X-Acto knife, cut again, and then fill this with now red. Yeah.
You
So you have
lot
to
would have
do
been some
more-
pretty damn patient people by the end of it.
No. Man, but it gives me nightmares, man.
I mean, it's giving me nightmares just hearing about it.
I hated that so. I was like, what the hell is this? But you do learn about design. It's just, I really didn't feel like I had to do that. And especially, classes like that, I think in a lot of ways, they're gone. Or in a way, it's a little bit obsolete now, because, we do a lot of things digitally. So I don't know if classes like that I'm sure they're taught differently now. But in terms of like the drawing workload, I know it's not the same, because those teachers, a lot of them quit because our department chair, they had a department chair, well, they changed, and then, she's not an illustration major, or I don't know, she wasn't a very good department chair. I don't know if she's still there, but man, we all hated her. Because students are required to be at school at 8, she should be there at 8. She shouldn't come in whenever she feels like And I don't know. It was not cool because my department chair. Luckily, I only had to deal with her for like a year, I think. My department chair was Gary Meyer and Phil Hayes, and I was under the old Art Center contract, not the new one. Yeah. But anyway, so we have our what's it called? We have our base, and then so what I'll do is I'll quickly fill it in with a. But anyway, does that answer your question about the workload? Because the workload was just to. I believe they don't want you to finish. I mean, that's kind of what they're doing. They're trying to give you enough work so that I don't know, you stay busy and then you develop this crazy work ethic, or you either survive or you don't. That's just kind of what I think they were trying to do originally. Because the school had a reputation to uphold. So by I think fourth or fifth term, you have a review, and that's when sometimes they'll tell you, like they might tell you you shouldn't drop. Maybe you should, you should continue, or some of your weaknesses that you need to work on, or sometimes they would just tell you maybe you shouldn't do this anymore. So yeah, it's kind of harsh. Yeah. So anyway, so as long as I like the shape now, I can start building uh, uh, my uh, my secondary forms now. So, I'm building Jin, or the samurai look. So I know he has a headband, the forehead protector. They have the traditional samurai. So I'm just drawing a traditional samurai, and then the first painting I do is just something I want. And I'm working in Bruce Timm style, so like it means I can't like have all this crazy what's it called, wrinkles, just even simplified shapes, because he doesn't really draw all these crazy wrinkles. So that's how I'll first start. Probably just mimic mostly his actual arms, and then samurais wear gauntlets. Forehead protector. I have to keep in mind I can't go too crazy with wrinkled shapes right now. So I need to know, or try to go for the Bruce Timm kind of style, and he doesn't really draw a lot of wrinkles. I remember because if you watch like a Batman Superman series and they're wearing suits, they don't really have wrinkles. Like the traditional wrinkle shapes that we're thinking about this way. Let's see, and then he wears the hakama, the pants. I don't think I can draw that sharp. I just draw a shape and then I fill it in right away. Easier. The reason why I do it this way is because before, when I would just draw straight shapes, I have to go in and redraw everything. So now I just work with a line drawing underneath. It just makes it easier. There you go. The finger should be like this. So I don't really know what the actual gauntlet looks like yet. I'm just drawing just the shape. Because I can, depending on what I do with the internal details, it changes the meaning of it. And maybe he's wearing like the thicker. I don't know. Is he wearing, are they wearing greaves? I don't remember. And samurai have their sandals. Create another layer. And start building out or figure out his actual armor shape. There's a shoulder piece. A lot of samurai armor have like cords. How it attaches. Plates have like a front piece, and then there's cords on the side. The actual shape or the details on the inside, I don't really care about it right now. I might draw a lighter detail to separate the stuff. Other than that, I don't really care. And there'll be the belt. There'll be cords coming off of the actual samurai armor or the chest piece. Gives us the side skirts. Maybe this part is metal. And we have the shoulder piece. Facing off to the side.
Hey, Brian,
Yeah,
how do they manage to keep the shoulder pads sitting where they are? Because they don't seem to be fixed with very much.
it's just cords. It actually moves a lot.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you'd stop them from, like getting twisted up or like flopping off onto the sides, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, they have a lot of, there's a little strings and cords holding it in place.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, man.
I don't think it's as efficient though, honestly, the way it like, I don't know. I still like I think the medieval greaves. I mean, they do have the Japanese armor where it kind of plates like this down
Yeah.
the side. And also the actual they don't just wear what's it called? The kimono, the regular kimono on top. They actually there's another layer they wear that also has armor on it.
Oh yeah.
There's little plates on the side. It's multi-layered. But I still like the I don't know, I think the medieval knight solution was like the best. You're like a small tank.
Yeah, it does seem to be a lot more form fitting. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's it called? There's lots of details about samurai, just the way they wear their clothes and everything that, when you do the research, it's really interesting. Like, in a kimono, those little circles on the side,
Yeah.
that's really important because if you're if you're like a noble, right? You would want to show people those circles because those circles are your family crest.
Okay. Yeah. That's
So
real
it's
cool.
letting people know you're important. You're not just some random, just run of the mill samurai or even samurai class was big, but it just lets people know even if you're wearing just a kimono, that you're an important person.
Yeah, definitely. You got that family brand recognition sort of thing. It's important.
Yeah. And then there's so many little details. I don't know, the research I always find is fascinating too. So, it depends on there's a sword. It's for killing people on horses by the Mongols. That looks amazing.
Is that the one that has that huge hook on the end?
Um, it might be the one. I don't know which one you're talking about, but the one
Actually, yeah,
I'm
that's
talking about.
that's not a lot of information to go off, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, actually draw it out.
yeah, it looks like this. It's big. It's shaped something like this.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that. It's mad.
Yeah, it's a two-handed sword. It's for basically it's big so that when a horse is charging, they can take the horse's legs out.
Yeah, imagine that. They're like, yeah, don't come up with a way to knock the guy off the horse. We'll just take out the whole horse.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That seems very Mongol-like to me.
Yeah, those guys are
And
ballsy as hell.
yeah, the neck guard.
Was it also the Mongols that had the oh, what were they called? It was like combination bows or whatever that had like animal sinew and whatnot worked into it, so it was like really springy for its size. Was that them?
I don't know. Might be. It sounds cool, but yeah.
I'm racking my brain
Maybe.
because I remember we had Carlo Aureliano talking about the compound bow, and I think it was the Mongols, but I don't want to straight out say it because I might be wrong. But yeah, whoever was the first person to come up with that like worked animal sinew into their bow so they could have a smaller bow that would have like, just as much impact as a large one. Whoever they were, they knew what they were doing. They revolutionized war a bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. So there's a question, how would you draw the frontalis? Um, the frontalis on a muscular person, the frontalis is very thin. It's a very thin muscle. So the frontalis, you don't need to really worry about that. Like, because if you draw the person's face, most of the muscles on the face are really thin because most of your face is bone. It's just like your hand. So if you can draw the skull, the frontalis muscle is kind of just already there because the frontalis muscle is not a muscle that we're going to actually see. We have to just know it's there because it's like a thin sheet just sitting on top of your skull. You need to worry about that. And in terms of scapula lift, if you lift your arm, when you lift your arm, the scapula, remember, back view. But yeah, this is a quick way to draw some characters real quick. Yeah, and then you would just keep going, messing around with shapes. you can make it look cooler in the front, or, very interesting and whatever in the front view, you're off to a good start. But anyway, so you draw a circle, another circle, you find the pit of the neck. There's the 7th vertebrae. It's the back of the rib cage. 10th rib is somewhere here. Okay, so let's just say the 12th rib. So it'll be in between 45-degree angles, your clavicle. So, oops. So about here. And then I know the scapula, when you raise your arms to about 160 degrees, now 180, it's about 45 degrees from the 7th vertebrae. And I just connect the two. Oops, let's do that in red. There's the trapezius, IDK muscle. And you have your deltoid, which we went over today. Does that make sense? Your clavicle can go up to about 45 degrees when we hyperextend, meaning, if you raise it to about 180, you're kind of forcing it. And then, let's say, you're reaching for something, and then, you can't comfortably reach for it anymore. So you'll pull your arm up a little bit more. And then just remember, after that point, after you raise your arm about 180 and you hyperextend, at that point, you're going to have to start tilting your body so you can get extra reach. Bring this over. This person has a. Oh, no problem. But yeah, so this is how you can design characters really fast. And even this, it doesn't really look too much like Bruce Timm style. So after I do this, I'll go in and I'll start refining the shapes more again and again.
Yeah, it's sick.
And it's cool because if it looks good at this point, then it's like, all right, cool. And then and it's nice when you can show. I like working this way too because a director can easily understand this, or your art director or your client, they can easily understand this.
Yeah, and you can make a bunch of iterations to this point and then show it to them, and then they can pick the ones out that they want you to take further, and you don't have to put in all the work straight off the bat.
Yeah, because this is why I think a lot of even 3D guys, they like to draw first, because in the time, Jared just says in the time it takes me to do one model, I can do 3 pages of silhouettes or a page of silhouettes.
Yeah, for sure.
And then from there, I can decide, hey, I want to work on this one, or I don't want to work on this one. So this makes things a lot easier. Right?
Yeah. All right.
So,
I think. Oh, sorry. You go.
No, I was gonna say homework for next week is just 20 figures with Eric's. There's levels now, right? So step 1, if you're still struggling with 1 and 2, just stay with 1 and 2. If you're feeling a little bit more comfortable, start working on the likeness, modify the Eric to make it look like the person. And you can concentrate a little bit more now on the arms, because we learned a little bit about the shoulder girdle and we learned about arms today. So just slowly start focusing on that, but take it one step at a time. Next week, we'll go over the torso.
Righteous. Thanks, Brian. See you next time.
All right.
See you guys.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man.